This is Matt Gifford with SJU Hawks exclusive interview with St. Joe's head coach Phil Martelli. Good afternoon, Phil.
Matt, how you doing?
I'm well today, thank you. So Phil, this has been an interesting offseason for you in the sense that you have three recent graduates that are all playing in the NBA Summer League this year. You have Ron with the Sixers, and then both Halil and Langston are going to be playing in Summer League as well. What's your level of contact with those three, with Ron and Langston and Halil, as they are trying out for these NBA teams?
Well, I speak to them as often as I can. I'm texting with them almost on a daily basis, and when I have information, whether it's I got a phone call from a team in a league, where are you? I got a call from a foreign representative, what do you want me to tell them? And Langston has stayed in Philadelphia. He'll leave shortly for the Las Vegas Summer League and for the Knicks mini camp. But I talk to them quite frequently, and when Ron made the splash, he and I have exchanged a couple of different texts about this is the start of a journey. Nothing has been accomplished yet. It's the start of a journey, and keep his head down and play better the next time out.
Okay. Yeah, he's averaging 12 points and 7.5 rebounds so far. With Ron, him being the only active player, do you have people that contact you about him, or for the most part are they contacting him and his agent at this point?
You know what's interesting? As the draft approached and Ron, Lang, and Halil all had opportunities with these tryouts, these individual workout tryouts, what was kept hitting in the back of my head was when Dwayne Jones went through the same process, nobody ever called and did a background check. Okay. Nobody ever called and said, let me pick your brain about the young guy, let me pick your brain as him as a player, let me pick your brain as to who surrounds him. Yet when Jameer and Delonte went through, I talked to everybody. I talked to the security forces from each team. I talked to security at the NBA. So as the draft approached, and there were any number of these tryouts, I just realized, these guys are a little bit further off the board than maybe they think or the people around them think. I didn't interject myself at that point in time, but when no one's name came up, I was not surprised, and I'm actually very, very impressed with how they handled, if you can put it in quotes, the disappointment of not being drafted and being ready. And I think that's the biggest thing that I'm leaning on. Halil was ready to go to Rome. He was ready to play at that level. Ron is ready to play in the NBA Summer Leagues and in the individual workouts, and Langston continues to work. So their work ethic will not be a reason that someone will say, well, they weren't ready for their job interview with the NBA.
Okay. Shifting a little bit to the out-of-conference schedule. Your out-of-conference schedule recently came out, and there's some changes because this year the A-10 moves from the 16 game to the 18 game. St. Joe's is participating in the preseason NIT this year, and you have some other things going on with your schedule. I just wanted to know what goes into, from your standpoint, from an athletic standpoint, what goes into creating a schedule, an out-of-conference schedule?
Well, actually, at the end of the day, this was one of the easiest schedules to form because by contract, we had to go to Denver. We had to go to Marist.
Those were all return games.
They were return games. Okay. Loyola was coming here. So in all of the excitement of being the reigning champions, you would say, well, maybe we can get this game, or maybe television will call for that game. But that wasn't the case. We had one game to get. It had to be a home opener.
Okay.
It had to be a somewhat local team because it was a team that we were going to pay some money to come. We wanted somebody that would appreciate the fact that we were unfurling, is that the right word?
It works.
We're going to put that banner up that night. And Dwayne Lee's on the staff at FDU. So we had one game to get.
Okay.
The other games were really, and we're still in progress of trying to get an agreeable date with Drexel.
Okay.
So.
Oh, that's right. You also have all the city games in addition to everything else with the returns.
So really, you make a great point. I don't know what the 18 league games is going to feel like yet.
Right. That's a huge change.
But it's a big deal. So when you take 18 and you take, we're going to play Drexel, we're not walking away from that rivalry. Penn, Villanova, and Temple is now an out of conference opponent. That's 22 games. You're going to play a a quality non or exempt tournament. So now you're at 20. We really have about 5 games to play with a year.
Okay.
And this year we had 1.
Because of the returns.
Yeah, because of all the returns and that kind of thing. So I'm already starting to work on 15, 16 with this, and to get to your question about philosophies. We have had over several years evolved the idea of really putting a number on it, 15 or 16 home games. How do you do that? Okay, some of that is you're going to have to get into the buy business. We were able to do that last year with Boston U and Binghamton. We're able to do that this year with FDU. That's it, though.
Okay.
So in the years to come, the next year, it's really a 2-year window. What's best, home and home.
Right.
I'm always looking for teams that are going to be on the uptick in their conference. No Atlantic 10 team would go to Vermont.
Correct.
It was the right thing for us with our team. But I want to give our fans 15 or 16 games. We've made the decision to come to Hagen with our Villanova and our Temple and our big rivalry games. We have a little bit of leeway to make those calls to an outsider and say, hey, would you consider a home and home? I will not be bought.
Okay.
Because I think it's disrespectful to all that's been built at St. Joseph's University. A lot of the, if you want to call it creative scheduling of 2-for-1s, that stuff's all gone now.
Okay.
It's
bought.
They're buying, or as was announced last week, the Big East and the Big Ten are going to go into a
like a challenge.
A challenge
right.
series,
like what the Big Ten and the ACC was.
Right.
Did for a while.
So they have all of these. But I do see some wiggle room, believe it or not. I see some wiggle room. I think the big boys now recognize that the Atlantic 10 got 6 teams in the tournament because they scheduled properly. And the SEC has been kind of left at the gate because they didn't schedule properly. And I start to see, if you start to look at these schedules, you start to see some changes. So, look, I love the Gonzaga series.
Right.
I call Mark Few every year. It's just not where they are right now. They don't have an interest. I called Butler before Butler was in the league. Brad Stevens said this is not something that they were interested in.
So those calls are out there.
Yeah, those schools are out there, like Creighton. Somebody would say, that was great. It was great.
But it was 4 years.
And then they called and said, we're already coming to the East. We're coming to Philadelphia. We have 18,000 season ticket holders. We want to hold more of our games at home. Okay. So I get it. And at the end of the day, what I want to create is those memories for our players, like special chance at St. John's in the preseason NIT, with the idea of like you get to play in the Garden if this happens. The following year in the Hall of Fame Classic, we're going to go Mohegan Sun, and I think it's with Florida State, Purdue, and I forget the fourth school, but we're a host.
Okay.
So in 15-16. We're opening that weekend with Buffalo and Niagara in our building. Okay. We're going to be able to have about 16 or 17 home games in 15-16. And with the team that we have, young next year, and then they're going to get a lot of experience, and then we're going to have a really good chance to make our mark with home games in that year.
Okay. And so the scheduling also is years out as well.
It's actually 2 years out. It's really 2 years out. Like I got some email about, hey, how did this happen? Or, we're the Atlantic 10 champs, and we should be able to play better schedule. But this schedule was done.
Not now.
Yeah,
it was
done
last year.
2 summers ago.
Okay.
And next year is really kind of more of a wiggle room. By my count, and I keep it a sketch pad on my desk, we have 5 games to get. I'd like 3 of them to be home, 2 of them to be on the road. We could take a monster home and home if we can get somebody that will agree to play home and home. And that will be a schedule that will be worked on exclusively in September and October. And a little bit different than most programs, the scheduling begins and ends on my desk.
Okay.
It's not an assistant coach talking to an assistant. I make the call and I'll say, okay, who's the decision maker? What do you think about this as a natural game? The other thing I think, Matt, because I know how closely you follow the Philadelphia schoolboy scene, I watch where these kids go to school,
Okay.
and I'll make a call to a school and say, hey, would you have an interest in bringing Emil Jefferson home?
Okay.
You know,
As a
that
homecoming
type of
game
thing.
for
Yes,
them.
yes.